Vanessa Johnson sat poised in her opulent office, a sanctuary adorned with contemporary art and plush furnishings that echoed her success as a millionaire entrepreneur. She flipped through the glossy pages of customer feedback reports, her brow furrowing as she read the disturbing testimonials. Each account was a stark reminder of the world she had built, a luxury retail chain that promised elegance and sophistication. Yet, beneath the surface, the words spoke of prejudice. Customers mistreated based on their appearance, their dignity stripped away by her own staff. Unbelievable, she muttered to herself, her voice barely a whisper. She leaned back in her ergonomic chair, fighting a surge of frustration and alarm. This was not the brand she had worked tirelessly to cultivate. Her heart raced as she thought of the countless individuals who entered her stores, seeking not just products, but a sense of belonging and respect. She could not allow this behavior to continue. Determined to take action, Vanessa made a decision that would change everything. "I need to see it for myself," she said aloud, her reflection staring back at her with a fierce resolve. The thought of disguising herself and going undercover sent a thrill through her, mixed with trepidation. She would become one of her customers, to experience firsthand the atmosphere within her flagship New York store. The following day, she donned a simple outfit, an oversized hoodie, distressed jeans, and a pair of well-worn sneakers. Her carefully crafted image as a powerful businesswoman faded as she stepped out of her luxurious apartment, replaced by an ordinary facade. As she approached her store, a familiar mix of excitement and anxiety bubbled within her. The store's glass facade sparkled in the morning light, the interior glowing with the promise of high-end fashion. But would that glow extend to everyone who walked through those doors? Once inside, Vanessa's senses were overwhelmed. The scent of expensive perfumes wafted through the air, mingling with the soft chatter of customers and the gentle rustle of silk and cashmere. She took a moment to observe, her heart pounding as she blended into the crowd. The atmosphere was luxurious, yet she could sense an undercurrent of exclusivity. It was a world she had created, but now felt alien within. Her observations were abruptly interrupted when Ethan Turner, the store manager, sauntered into view. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, exuding an air of smug confidence. As he scanned the floor, his gaze landed on Vanessa. In an instant, his expression shifted, a mix of condescension and disinterest flickering across his face. "What can I help you with today?" he asked, his tone dripping with arrogance, as if he were addressing a mere peon rather than a potential customer. Vanessa felt a rush of anger rise within her, fueled by the indignity of being treated as insignificant. "I was looking at that trench coat," Vanessa replied, nodding toward a high-end garment displayed prominently on a mannequin. Ethan chuckled, an unsettling sound that made her skin crawl. "Oh, that one? It's a beautiful piece, but I'm not sure it's really, in your league," he said, his eyes scanning her outfit with barely concealed disdain. Vanessa felt her heart race, a mixture of disbelief and fury coursing through her veins. "What do you mean by that?" she challenged, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "Just that it's a high-end item, and well, you know," he gestured dismissively, as if her appearance alone disqualified her from even considering such luxury. In that moment, Vanessa's resolve solidified. She was not just a businesswoman. She was a champion for those who had been marginalized and mistreated. She would not let Ethan's words define her experience or the experiences of her customers. As she stood there, the weight of her mission settled heavily upon her shoulders. This was just the beginning, and she would ensure that her stores reflected the values she held dear: respect, dignity, and equality for all. Vanessa stood in front of the mirror, the luxurious trench coat draping elegantly over her frame, a stark contrast to her simple hoodie and jeans. She caught a glimpse of herself, momentarily losing herself in the reflection. The fabric felt soft against her skin, but it was the memories it ignited that overwhelmed her. She remembered her mother, a woman of grace and resilience, who had often faced judgment based on her appearance. The discrimination was subtle yet pervasive, and Vanessa recalled how her mother would brush it off with a forced smile, always reminding her daughter, "People's opinions don't define your worth." Taking a deep breath, Vanessa left the store, the weight of the trench coat heavy on her shoulders, not because of its fabric, but due to the emotional burden it carried. As she walked down the bustling streets of New York, her mind raced with thoughts of her mother's struggles. She could almost hear her mother's voice echoing in her heart, urging her to fight against the injustices she witnessed. "I won't let your legacy fade away," she whispered, her resolve strengthening with each step. The vibrant city around her seemed oblivious to her internal battle. The cacophony of honking horns, chattering pedestrians, and the distant sound of street performers filled the air, but Vanessa felt isolated in her determination. This wasn't just about Ethan's dismissive attitude. It was about the culture she had unknowingly fostered within her own company. She had built a luxury brand on the foundation of elegance and sophistication, yet beneath that glittering veneer lay a troubling reality. As she navigated through the crowd, she realized that the issues of discrimination and elitism were systemic, deeply rooted in societal norms that had long plagued not only her store but countless others. It wasn't enough to simply confront Ethan. She needed to dig deeper, to understand how this behavior had become ingrained in her business. The following morning, she called Ethan into her office, her heart racing with anticipation. She kept the purpose of the meeting vague, wanting to maintain an air of mystery that would keep him on edge. When he walked in, his confidence radiated off him like a shield. Vanessa, seated at her polished mahogany desk, met him with a calm demeanor, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within her. "Vanessa," he began, his voice smooth, "I'm glad you wanted to meet. I hope everything's all right." "Everything is fine, Ethan," she replied, her tone steady. "I wanted to discuss some observations I've made regarding the store." His face brightened, clearly thinking this was going to be a conversation about sales figures or new merchandise. "Oh, great. I have some ideas that could really boost our numbers," he said, leaning forward, eager to share. Vanessa raised an eyebrow, suppressing a smirk at his enthusiasm. "Actually, it's about customer interactions. I've come across some concerning reports about how our staff treats certain customers. You, in particular, have been mentioned." Ethan's expression shifted, skepticism flashing in his eyes. "I assure you, Vanessa, I always strive to provide the best experience for our clientele. Are you sure these reports are accurate?" "Accurate enough that they warrant a discussion," Vanessa replied, her voice firm. "I've seen firsthand how you interact with our customers, and it's not just about your words, Ethan. It's your attitude." He opened his mouth to protest, but Vanessa continued, unwavering. "I think it's essential that we address this issue head-on. Discrimination, in any form, has no place in my company. We must foster an environment where every customer feels valued and respected, regardless of their appearance or background." Ethan leaned back, his bravado faltering slightly. "I didn't mean to come across that way. Sometimes, I just make quick judgments based on what I see." "Quick judgments can lead to a toxic culture," Vanessa interjected, her gaze piercing through the veneer of confidence he had carefully constructed. "And that's exactly what we need to change. You need to understand the impact of your actions, Ethan." As the weight of her words settled in the room, Vanessa could see the wheels turning in Ethan's mind. She knew that confronting him was just the beginning of a much larger mission, one that would require not just his cooperation but a complete overhaul of the culture within her company. The journey ahead was daunting, but Vanessa was ready to face it. She owed it to her mother and to every customer who had ever walked through her doors feeling less than worthy. This was just the beginning of her commitment to change. As Ethan Turner stepped into the conference room, the air shifted around him. His confident stride faltered as he recognized the woman seated at the head of the table. Vanessa Johnson, the very owner of the luxury retail chain he had taken for granted, was looking directly at him, her expression a complex mix of determination and disappointment. The realization hit him like a cold splash of water. The casual disdain he had shown to what he thought was an inconsequential customer had just come back to haunt him in the most profound way. "Mr. Turner," Vanessa began, her voice steady but laced with an edge that made Ethan's palms sweat. "I brought you here today to discuss some serious concerns that have come to my attention regarding customer treatment in our stores." Ethan swallowed hard, his mind racing. He had assumed that his position placed him above the consequences of his actions, that the reports were exaggerated or directed at someone else. But facing Vanessa, he could sense the gravity of the situation. "Of course, Ms. Johnson," he replied, his voice wavering slightly. "I'm here to listen." Vanessa leaned forward, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You dismiss customers based on their appearance. I have received multiple reports about your behavior, how you've treated people who don't fit your idea of what a luxury customer should look like. This is unacceptable." Ethan felt a flush of defensiveness rise within him. "I was just trying to maintain the brand's image. Sometimes, people don't understand the value of what we offer. It's about guiding them to the right products," he said, attempting to justify his actions. But the words felt hollow even to him. "Guiding them?" Vanessa's tone sharpened. "You're not a guide, Ethan. You're a barrier. You've created an environment where people feel belittled. You've made them doubt their worth based solely on their appearance. That is not what our brand stands for." As Vanessa spoke, Ethan could see the fire in her eyes, the passion that had driven her to build this empire. It was a stark contrast to the arrogance he had carried in his role as manager. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, realizing that he had become a part of the problem she was fighting against. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he stammered, his facade crumbling. "I thought I was just doing my job." "Your job should be to empower every customer who walks through our doors, regardless of how they look," Vanessa replied firmly. "You need to understand that luxury is not defined by appearance, but by experience. Every single person deserves respect, and as the manager, you should be leading by example, not perpetuating discrimination." Ethan opened his mouth to respond but found no words. The truth of her statements resonated deeply, stirring something inside him that he had long buried beneath layers of ego and privilege. He had been too focused on maintaining an image, forgetting that this image was built on the trust and loyalty of customers who deserved to feel valued. I see your point," he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought of it that way." Vanessa nodded, her expression softening just a fraction. "I want you to reflect on this, Ethan. I want you to understand that your actions have far-reaching consequences. This isn't just about numbers or sales. It's about people. Our customers are the heart of this company, and we must treat them as such." Ethan felt a wave of shame wash over him as he absorbed her words. The realization that he had failed in his role was a bitter pill to swallow. "What do you want from me?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. "I want you to change," Vanessa said simply, "and I want you to help me change this culture within our stores. We need to implement new training programs focused on diversity and inclusion. We can't fix this overnight, but we can start taking steps in the right direction." Ethan met her gaze, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, the hope that he would rise to the occasion. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said, his voice steadier now. "I want to be better." "Good," Vanessa said, a hint of a smile breaking through her stern demeanor. "I'll be counting on you, Ethan. We have a lot of work ahead of us." As they sat in the conference room, the air thick with possibility, Ethan felt a shift within himself. He wasn't just a manager anymore. He had the chance to become a catalyst for change. In that moment, he realized that the path to redemption would not be easy, but it was necessary, not just for the customers, but for himself as well. Vanessa sat at the head of the long conference table, her presence commanding the room. The polished wood gleamed under the overhead lights, but it was the tension in the air that drew everyone's attention. Ethan fidgeted in his seat, his earlier bravado stripped away, leaving only a nervous shell of the man who had once dismissed her with an arrogant sneer. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," Vanessa began, her voice steady yet firm. "I've been reflecting on the culture within our stores, and it's clear that we need to make significant changes. Starting today, we will implement a new training program focused on diversity and inclusion." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his colleagues, who wore expressions ranging from confusion to concern. "Is this really necessary?" he interjected, trying to regain some control. "I mean, we're already successful. Why fix what isn't broken?" Vanessa leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "Ethan, this isn't just about our company's success. This is about respect. respect for every single person who walks through our doors. We have received numerous reports of customers being treated poorly based on their appearance. That's not a success, it's a failure. Ethan's face paled, the weight of her words settling heavily on his shoulders. But I didn't think it was that serious, he stammered, his previous confidence evaporating. I thought I was just following the standards we've set. Standards that are rooted in bias and discrimination, Vanessa asserted, her voice gaining strength. That cannot be our foundation. I won't allow it. Every employee will undergo this training, including you. You need to understand the impact of your actions and words. Fine, he said, his tone reluctant but resigned. I'll participate, but I still think we should consider our target market and what they expect. Vanessa shook her head, her patience thinning. This isn't just about catering to a specific market. It's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome. Our customers deserve better. You will learn to see beyond appearances, beyond your preconceived notions. This training will be mandatory, and I expect full engagement from everyone here. A few murmurs of agreement echoed in the room, but Vanessa could sense the underlying resistance. She took a deep breath, knowing that the road ahead would be challenging, but she was determined to carve a new path for her company. As the meeting continued, Vanessa outlined the new policies that would accompany the training program. We will establish a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind, she declared. This will be non-negotiable. Anyone found violating this policy will face serious consequences. Our brand's integrity depends on it. Ethan remained silent, his expression darkening. He was beginning to understand the gravity of the situation, yet his mind still clung to the old ways. And what about the customers who expect a certain level of exclusivity? He finally asked, almost as if searching for a lifeline. Exclusivity does not equate to elitism, Vanessa replied, her voice calm but resolute. We can maintain our high standards without alienating potential customers. Our mission is to ensure that everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of how they look. That's how we build loyalty and a positive reputation in this industry. The meeting concluded, and as the attendees filed out, Vanessa felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. She had taken the first step toward change, but she knew that this was just the beginning. The conversations, the training, and the policies they would implement would require time and effort from everyone involved. Ethan lingered in the back of the room, his mind racing. Vanessa, he called out, hesitating as she turned to face him. I didn't realize how deep this went. I'll do my best to understand. I want to change. Vanessa met his gaze, searching for sincerity in his eyes. I hope you will, Ethan. It's not just about you. It's about all of us. If we're going to make this work, we need everyone on board. He nodded slowly, the weight of her words heavy on his shoulders. I'll be there, I promise. As she walked out of the conference room, a mix of hope and uncertainty swirled within her. She was determined to honor her mother's legacy and ensure that her company reflected the values of respect and inclusion. But she also knew that real transformation would require confronting the deeply ingrained biases that had festered for years. It wouldn't be easy, but Vanessa was ready to lead the charge, one step at a time. As the weeks progressed, Vanessa immersed herself in the diversity and inclusion training sessions she had initiated. She stood at the front of the room, her presence commanding yet warm, as she shared her personal journey. The stories flowed from her heart, resonating with the employees gathered before her. She recounted the struggles she had witnessed growing up and the strength her mother had shown in the face of prejudice. Each of us carries a story, she began, her voice steady and inviting. But we often forget that the person next to us has their own battles. It's time we listen to one another. As she spoke, Vanessa could see the staff shifting in their seats, a mix of discomfort and reflection playing across their faces. Ethan, seated among the attendees, felt a shift within himself. He had initially approached the training with skepticism, viewing it as a mere corporate obligation. But listening to Vanessa's story, he began to grapple with the reality of his own biases. He caught himself nodding as she emphasized the importance of understanding and empathy. Imagine if we treated every customer, regardless of their appearance, with respect and kindness. What kind of environment would that create? After the session, Ethan approached Vanessa, his demeanor transformed. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've realized that I've let my judgments cloud my interactions. I want to do better." Vanessa smiled gently, appreciating his willingness to engage. "It's a journey, Ethan. It's about recognizing our flaws and actively working to change them. We can only move forward if we are honest with ourselves." Days turned into weeks, and the change within the store was palpable. Ethan began to approach customers with a newfound warmth, taking the time to learn their names and preferences. He sought out feedback from his team, encouraging them to share their thoughts and experiences. The once stark atmosphere of the store began to soften, as the staff learned to value each individual who walked through their doors. However, as Vanessa continued her quest for change, she began to notice subtle signs of resistance. Whispers among the upper management hinted at a reluctance to fully embrace her vision. They were comfortable in their elitist culture, and change felt threatening to their status quo. Vanessa's instincts urged her to dig deeper. She knew that true transformation required more than just altering the behavior of a few individuals. One afternoon, as she reviewed company reports, Vanessa stumbled upon a series of emails that made her heart race. They detailed discussions among certain executives, highlighting their disdain for the changes she was implementing. They referred to her mission as a nuisance and spoke about maintaining their exclusive brand image. Vanessa felt a cold knot form in her stomach. This was no longer just about Ethan. It was about a systemic issue embedded within her company. With her mind racing, she called Ethan into her office. "I need to share something with you," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "I've uncovered some troubling communications among our upper management. They're undermining the changes we're trying to make." Ethan's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What do you mean? Are they against the training sessions?" "Yes," Vanessa replied, her eyes narrowing. "They're worried that our new focus on diversity and inclusion will alienate our high-end clientele. They want to preserve the elitism that has permeated this company." Ethan's brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, urgency in his voice. "We can't let that happen, Vanessa. You've already started changing minds on the ground floor. We have to address this at the top." Vanessa nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Together, they would need to confront this issue head-on. She knew that her battle was far from over, and that the path ahead would demand courage and resilience. As she prepared to challenge the very foundation of her company's culture, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was not just fighting for her mother's legacy anymore. She was fighting for a future where every customer felt valued, where respect was a standard, not a luxury. With Ethan by her side, she knew they could begin to dismantle the walls of elitism that had been built over years. The journey ahead would be tough, but Vanessa was ready to face whatever came next. Change was possible, and it started with them. The conference room was filled with an air of trepidation as Vanessa Johnson stood at the head of the long, polished table, her presence commanding the attention of the upper management team. The bright skyline of New York City peeked through the large windows, a stark contrast to the darkness of the revelations she was about to unveil. She glanced around the room, noting the nervous glances exchanged among her executives, their apprehension palpable. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Vanessa began, her voice unwavering. "I've been conducting a thorough investigation into our customer service practices, and what I've discovered is deeply troubling." A murmur of discomfort rippled through the room. Vanessa pulled out a stack of reports, the damning evidence of discrimination and systemic bias against customers based on their appearances. She laid the documents on the table, each one a testament to the hurt and pain inflicted under their watch. "Here, you can see the patterns of behavior that have emerged across multiple stores, particularly in New York. This isn't just about a few rogue employees. It's a culture that has been cultivated over time," she stated, her voice steady despite the storm brewing within her. "We have a responsibility to our customers, and we are failing them." Ethan, who had been seated in the corner, his face pale, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The weight of his past actions pressed heavily on him, and he could feel the eyes of his colleagues sharpened in judgment. "But, Vanessa, we've been working to improve our training programs," he interjected, desperation creeping into his tone. "I thought we were making progress." Vanessa's gaze bore into him, unyielding. Progress is meaningless if we are still allowing these biases to thrive. This is not just about training. It's about accountability. As she continued, the atmosphere became even more charged. I've learned that one of our own executives has been orchestrating these discriminatory practices, fostering an environment where elitism is not just tolerated but encouraged. It's time we name names. Gasps filled the room as she tossed a file towards the center of the table, the contents spilling out, revealing the name that would shatter the remaining trust within the team. Malcolm Hastings, one of the company's senior vice presidents and a mentor to Vanessa herself. Malcolm? Ethan's voice cracked, disbelief etching across his features. He's been with the company for over a decade. How could he— Exactly, Ethan. Vanessa cut him off, her tone sharp. He was the one who perpetuated this culture of exclusivity. He had a hand in the training materials that implicitly condoned these behaviors. By turning a blind eye, he became complicit in our failures. The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Vanessa could see the realization flash across many of their faces, the understanding that they had not just a bad manager but a fundamental issue at the heart of their operations. Effective immediately, I'm terminating Malcolm's position, Vanessa announced, her voice resolute. We will be implementing a zero-tolerance policy for any acts of discrimination, and I will lead the way in reshaping our company's culture. We will not only serve our customers but respect them, regardless of their appearance. As she spoke, Ethan felt a surge of mixed emotions. He had once aligned himself with Malcolm's views, but now he was engulfed in shame for ever having thought that way. Vanessa, I want to help, he said, his voice low yet earnest. I've seen what's wrong, and I'm ready to be part of the solution. Vanessa looked at him, her expression softening just a fraction. I believe you, Ethan. Change starts with us acknowledging our past mistakes and committing to do better. Together, we can rebuild this company into one that values inclusivity and respect. With that, she felt a swell of hope within her. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of a broken system, she understood that her mother's legacy of resilience was alive within her. The path to change was just beginning, and she would ensure it was a path paved with respect and dignity for all. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and watch this next story. It's truly emotional.